Pokemon Scarlet and Violet now have been out for close to a week and a week in Australia. And as a streamer, I get asked the same question over and over and again. And it is, what is my thoughts on Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? And I'm here to talk today about what they are. As someone who's got about 100 hours between both versions, and this game being the follow-up to the BDSP, Legends Arceus, and Sword and Shield, it's important to know the pros and the cons. So I'm going to be breaking that down in both two sections, the pros and the cons section. And I'm going to try to stay as spoiler-free as possible. There will be game footage being shown. However, it shouldn't show any Pokemon that have not been seen, if any. And if there are, it will all be early game footage with the exception of one or two cities. That being said, let's go ahead and start breaking it down with the pros of the game. So, talking about the pros of the game, there are quite a few pros, and in my opinion, these are some of the strongest pros in any Pokemon game to date. So to start things off, we are going to be talking about the rivals of the game, both Nemona and Armin. Both characters are extremely great in the story, at least in my opinion. You have Nemona, who is a battle-ready person. She is all about battles, and that's a nice refresher. The other one is Arvin, who is set to the Legends path. Your goal is to gather the Herba Mystica form. Now, the important thing about both of these rivals is this is the first time in a Pokemon franchise where I felt like the rivals were not actually rivals, because they are not. They are actually your friends, who end up making way more sense as friends than they would rivals. Nemona being, like I said, the battle-ready type of person. She will challenge you. However, she doesn't actually challenge you every corner of the way like you see in Black and White. Or most of the other ones. Every time she does battle you, it's to check up on you. She cares for you. And the other one is Armin, who is such a sweet lad. You can't help but like him and feel sympathy for his story with the Legends. As both of these stories kind of go on, they intertwine, along with the third story, but we'll get to that in just a minute. And this is the first time, like I said, in any Pokemon franchise, where it's not as much of your rivals existing in the world and them doing their own thing. These rivals actually feel like they are part of the world. They are actually journeying with you, with their own paths and trying to find their own treasure, which makes this game extremely unique and very pleasant to experience. The next thing I want to talk about is the three story paths here. Again, there is no spoilers. However, I am going to be talking about what these paths, what makes them so great. So to start off, we're going to start with the Victory Road path. This is your standard 8 gym badge path. The nice thing about these is all three of these stories can be mixed and matched with the exception of a couple, and I'll get to those later, but they make it to where it breaks it up, where you're not just going into a specific order from 1 to 8. That was one of the biggest problems with Sword and Shield, is going from one gym to the next felt like it took 4 seconds. This game, you could do that, or you can break it up with either of the Legends path or the Team Star path. So let's kind of talk about the benefits of all of the normal gym leader path. Isn't anything outstanding. It's you go beat up a gym leader. However, they have revised it to where it's not as much of you beat up some trainers and the gym leader is standing there. All the gym leaders have a personality this game, and on top of that, they actually don't just stay in gyms, which is a nice, refreshing bit of the game. And I'm not going to talk about exactly what they're doing. However, it is a formula change that is much welcome. The next one, we have the Legends path, and this is similar to the Alolan Titans, and I can say this is probably honestly my favorite path of the story. You are following with Arvin, and the important thing here is, again, you can go in any order for anything, but you feel a sense of accomplishment when you go through his story. You understand what he's going through and what he plans to go through. These also work way better than the Titans because they are not as tedious. They're not as hard either as you would think they would be. However, if you challenge them in the wrong order, you can get stomped. I did all of them in Violet. I'm currently going through all of them in Scarlet. The final one is Team Star, which arguably is the weakest. However, it is still very much so enjoyable. The battles themselves only take a couple minutes, and they give you plenty of time to rest up between the auto battles. So that way you're not feeling like it's a very big tedious deal. One of the nice things is because you can challenge these with the exception of a couple in any order, it allows you to break it up the formula so it doesn't get stale for either. or for any 3, which is a much needed thing. The next thing is the Pokemon designs. These are some of the best designs, at least in my opinion, since we have ever seen. You have the likes of Ceruledge and a bunch of other things that I'm not going to talk about because, again, I'm trying to stay as spoiler-free for you guys, but they are some of the most insane designs. Stuff that I wouldn't think I would normally like, and I love it. They bring some refreshing taste to some of the older mons, such as Diglett and Wiglet, and on top of that, some new evolutions that are very much so needed. The next thing I want to talk about is the cities and the environments. This game has some of the best environments and cities I have seen in a Pokemon game in a very long time. Now, when I talk about the cities and environments, I'm not talking about necessarily the performance and stuff of that game or the environments. However, the design of the city and environments. You go to one area and it is covered with this archaic looking Gen 1 callback. You go to another area and it is a bamboo forest, and you go to another area and it's this cool redwooded forest, and it is filled with Pokemon just hanging out in trees. You see Pokemon swim, you see Pokemon interact with other Pokemon. It is such a nice take on the world of Pokemon that we have not seen in a very long time because of how hard it is to actually make that type of thing. Back in Sword and Shield, you got pretty much a Pokemon that would stand around and that was it. This game is not like that at all. You will see Pokemon roam next to each other. You will see Pokemon be in a battle and try to fight you, even though you are already in a battle and getting ready. It is so nice. There is another city where water is just literally flowing down into the city itself. And because of that, it makes you just really enjoy it. The last pro that I'm going to talk about here is one that I never thought I would ever say, and that is this has some of the best online feature and function that I have seen yet in any game. I know that is weird and wild, but hear me out. The online in this game works flawlessly from what we have tested. For those that don't know, every Monday, me and a group of friends do what is called the Raid Cast. So I'm not just bringing this up to talk about it and try to promote my stuff. However, if you are interested, it will be in the description below. But I'm mainly bringing this up because of how often we do it. This game works very different in any Pokemon game where you're able to do anything online with anyone at the same time. There is at one point in time where we tested this, and one of us was doing Team Star, one of us was doing a Gym Leader challenge, and the other was finding raids themselves. And it didn't have any issues whatsoever. We were able to do what we wanted to do. If we wanted to do a raid, we could. Which brings me to the next point on the online is the raids. They are much needed and much better than what they were in Sword and Shield. Sword and Shield, they took a while. They were very boring. It was just mashing A. This, you actually have to have strategy behind it because not everything is as easy as you think that it is. The other thing is, because of it being online, I was worried about a lot of the latency and lag. And so far, there is one hiccup that we had where we had defeated a mon, but the health bar hadn't registered and it ended up kicking us out of the den itself, saying we failed when we didn't. But other than that, it has been flawless. The nice thing is in this game, you can just hop in someone's world. Once you hop in that world, you're able to kind of go off on your own. And if someone launches a raid, it's as simple as a button press to join. There's no more 8-digit codes you need. You only need one code. Now, I've talked a lot about the pros of this game. It is time we talk about the cons because there are some big cons. And the most noticeably is the heavy performance issues. When you're going into the main city, the main city, it is plagued with frame rate drops, and this happens in about every city and anything that is far away. Now, it never bothered me too much. However, it does, of course, affect what I think of the game, as I think if it had a little more polish, it would be so much better. There's a point in the beginning of the game where you are in a classroom and literally the kids look like they are just having issues, and they are 2 frames, and I am not joking about it. The other big issue, and this kind of falls under performance as well, as loading times. Now, this game is open world, and you don't have to go into many loading areas. However, there are 2 loading areas, or I guess loading sections. Anytime you do or go into the main city, Messagoza, and the second one being anytime you finish one of the story missions, so any of the Titan missions, the Gym Challenge, or the Team Star thing, there is a loading screen. And those loading screens can take a while. It was so much so at the end of the game when the credits rolled, I was wondering if my game had crashed because I sat at a loading screen for 2 minutes. And I did time it, and it was about a minute 40, somewhere around in there, which is pretty long. The other con, and this is just something that I don't know if we can really consider it a con, I do, and it's Pokemon sizes. So people have been wanting Pokemon like their actual life size in a game for a very long time with the Wailord. Well, Game Freak delivered. The problem is Pokemon can be very small. There's a Pokemon that I will not name that is a very small green little thing, and it is in green grass biomes, so when you're riding on the legendary, you will never see it, and it will stop. Which brings me to my next problem of the game. When you are in a battle, there is no invul frames. And what do I mean by invul frames? Well, simply put, if you decide to leave said battle, the Pokemon that are around in the environment can still attack you. So you can leave a battle, be on top of another Pokemon, and get into that battle instantly. And it can chain like this. There was one point where I had to go through at least 3 or 4 Tauros on stream because I ended the fight and a Tauros was on top of me during the end of the fight scene. So that is kind of annoying, and it gets tiresome very quickly. The last con is, while this game is open world and they claim you can challenge anything in any order, that is not accurate. There are a couple instances that story paths are actually being locked behind the other stories. Specifically, the city I talked about earlier with the Gen 1 sprites everywhere, you cannot do that until you have something unlocked in one of the other stories. And speaking of that, some places you cannot get to do the story path. So for instance, the Legends path, there comes a point where you need a tool to get to one of the actual Legends. However, you can't do that unless you defeat another one of the Legends. So it is virtually, or at least through normal means, it is impossible to take on this Legend without doing at least 3 or I think it's actually 2 other ones. So those right there are my cons. So here we are at the end. What do I think of the game? I really loved it. The game itself, in my opinion, has some of the best written story, best written rivals, some of the best designs, and some of the best cities and environments, and definitely the best online I've ever seen in a Pokemon game. I would say story-wise, it rivals the Black and White series. Your rivals, these are easily the best rivals in my opinion. The Pokemon designs, of course not, this is more subjective, but in my opinion, they are, you can't beat them. They did such a great job with everything. And there's some things that are so meticulous and so well crafted in the game, such as the Pokemon's, like, when you go into a battle, you can see the shine on Magnemite and Scizor, and you can see the fur on stuff like Litleo, you can see the feathers on Starly, and that doesn't just hold to the Pokemon. When you go and throw a Pokeball, you can actually see that it's not just a JPEG anymore, it is actually well crafted. You can see the shine on it, you can see the actual model for it. But it is plagued with probably the worst performance issues I have ever seen. Now, me myself never have had that big of a deal with it to where it was at the point where it bothered me or it completely crashed my game. However, I have known a few times for some other people for it to crash and they lose their progress because they turned off autosave in all fairness, or it has actually soft locked the game. Now, again, I don't know necessarily about the crashing if it's console reasons or because the Switch is a very old console at this point and it does not have the strongest performance, or if that part is the game. However, the frame rate and the loading times are related to the game, so that is something to be mindful of. What do I think overall though? I love the game. I can't wait to continue playing it. I've never been more excited for a Game Freak Pokemon game, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the future. We'll be getting the Black and White story remakes eventually. That is the next on the docket, and I'm interested to see if they're going to go with more of an open world style thing like this, or are they going to do something like they did with Legends Arceus, or are we just going to get the BDSP treatment? I really hope we don't get that. So overall, what do I think of the game? Total score, 8 out of 10. Like I said, if it wasn't for the performance issues, easily a 9.5 out of 10. However, their performance issues are so noticeable and so bad, I just couldn't give it above an 8.5. Hopefully, this kind of helps you guys if you're wondering, what do I think? Should I buy the game? Should I not buy the game? And hopefully it points you in the right direction. And if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to let me know in the comments below if you guys did, if you want to see more of these. I honestly had a really fun time making this video. And I'll catch you guys next time.